further delay, I would like to turn today's presentation, Stand Out on Social with Photoshop and Spark, over to your presenter, Chris Converse, designer and developer with Adobe. Chris, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Bill. All right, so let me start sharing my screen here, and I got a ton of really cool stuff to show you guys. So let me get this started here. All right, so to begin, we have, I prepared a whole bunch of stuff, as I mentioned, to show you the Spark platform and also show you some things in Photoshop and show you how you can merge these two together. There's a bunch of things we can do in Photoshop. As I saw from the introduction screens, a lot of you are familiar with Photoshop, so I'm going to show you a couple of things that will help you be able to enhance your images, combine images for panoramic, do some content-aware fill, and even do some color adjustments to make your images look as amazing as possible, like stuff you would see in magazines. And then we're going to take all that content and we're going to create social media graphics, images, we're going to create a video, we're going to do all of this inside of Spark. And so we're going to use the two tools in tandem and just really create some really compelling content. So to begin, I want to start inside of Photoshop. And so some of the people here have never used it before. Some of you are very familiar with it. So what I figured I would do is I would go in and show a couple of examples of things that you can do that will really just show you some of the power inside of Photoshop and just be able to give your images that really strong presence that you'll need in order to stand out on social media. So the first thing I'm going to do inside of Photoshop, I have Photoshop running here, and I want to enhance some of the images that we're going to need for our company. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating some nice imagery and some social media graphics to promote a new tour to Iceland. And this is for a travel company called Travel & Co. And in order to do that, we're going to need to create some of these images in Photoshop, get them looking great, and then bring them over into our into Spark so we can create our social graphics. So the first thing that we have is we have a bunch of different photographs we've gotten from photographers and even from some of the staff who went and shot some things on their phones. So here I have two images that were taken at the top of a church at the top of this city. And what the photographer did here is they took one photo sort of pointing out toward the left. And if I click on a second photo, this is pointing toward the right. And they did overlap the buildings just a little bit here. So I want to combine these into one large image. So we could open both of these up in Photoshop and try to match these together. But there's some really amazing tools inside of Photoshop that will do some of this for us. So the first thing that we'll do is come down to the File menu in Photoshop, come down to Automate, and choose Photo Merge. So what Photo Merge will do is take a series of images and combine them into one large panoramic. Now your phones will do this automatically, but phones max out at maybe 10 or 12 megapixels, so you're not going to get a huge image. Here we're taking two images from a mirrorless camera and we're going to have Photoshop combine them, so we're going to get a really large graphic. So under the layout, I'm going to choose Auto. I'll let Photoshop figure out what's going on in the images. And to begin, I'm going to choose Use Files, and then I'll choose Browse. And then what I'm going to do is come in here and select the two images, Reykjavik 1 and 2. So with these selected, I'll click Open. I'll see these showing in the Photo Merge category here, and then I simply come over here and click OK. So now what Photoshop will do is open both images, match the two together, figure out where the seams are, and make this large panoramic for us. And we can do this with any number of images. So the next time you're out shooting with your phone or with a higher-end camera, just go across your horizon and just make sure you have just a little bit of overlap in your images and let Photoshop do the heavy lifting for you. So here I have the two images matched together. So I can show and hide in the Layers panel the top image showing the bottom. And we can see what Photoshop actually did. It went through and found all the matching pixels. It even moved and it even rotated. Now one thing you'll notice in the very top here is that there's some missing pixels across here. So Photoshop had to make some adjustments because I didn't hold the camera exactly perfect as I went across. So I'm going to close this and don't save, and I'm going to do this one more time. And we're going to choose Automate, Photo Merge. I'll pick the same two images again. And then we're going to come down here and click on this option here called Content Aware Fill. And we're going to use this in the next example as well. So this is where Photoshop can actually take content that is nearby artwork in your layers and invent new pixels for you, as if you had actually captured that with your photograph. So with that checkbox selected, I'll just do OK one more time. And now inside of Photoshop, I will get 3 layers. I will get the 2 layers that match together. And now it's thinking about the last piece. And now I have a 3rd layer here, which fills in the gap across the top here. So it is basically inventing pixels, which includes clouds, sky, buildings, all of this amazing content. So now I have this really large graphic. If I do a select all, we have almost 3,000 pixels up from the original smaller square photos that we had. So at this point, I can choose File, go down to Export, choose Export As. This will bring up Photoshop's Export dialog box. And in here, I would choose Format, bring this down to a JPEG. I might bring the quality down to maybe around 80%. I don't need 100% to put this online. Maybe I'll type in 80. And then I can come down here and simply click Export All, and I'll get a brand new graphic that we can use in our project. That's one really great quick feature, automatically stitching photos together and creating these really large panoramics for our social media content. The second thing is retouching. This is another thing that you want to do with a lot of your photos. So this was a photo that was taken by one of the staff members. This is one of the resorts that we're going to be promoting in our video later on in the demo. And there are 2 areas in here that we want to sort of fix. I'm going to come over here and select my magnification tool in the toolbar, and then I can click and drag and sort of zoom up. And I want to fix this really red, these little floaties that this child's wearing, holding on to his dad. These are really bright. If I zoom out of the photo, I really like this sort of blue and hazy effect from this natural hot spring. But this is just really bright, so I'm going to want to get rid of that. And I'm also going to want to get rid of the guard who's standing here in the back. He's wearing that bright yellow-green, which is great if you need his attention, but I don't want him in the photo. So the first thing we'll do down here to get rid of the floaties, these little red flotation devices, is we're going to use something called content-aware healing or spot healing. So on the toolbar, if I come down here and click down where we see the Band-Aid, well, you'll see the word healing, which content-aware and anything that's content-related will be in the healing world. So what this does is it lets me come in here and paint an area in my image, and just like the content-aware.
Chris.
Yes.
It looks like we lost your share. It looks like it dropped.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
Just go ahead and click. You may have been moved out. Let me check.
All right, let me connect in again.
Okay, one moment. Yep, we are seeing you.
Excellent. All right. So what we're going to be doing here is getting rid of the red flotation devices. So with our spot healing brush selected inside of Photoshop, if I click and hold, you can see that this says it's a healing brush. So again, as I mentioned before, this will actually use some of the content-aware healing that is part of a lot of tools inside of Photoshop now. And so what I'm going to do is come in here and simply paint. So with this selected, I can click and drag and start painting. And as I paint around, what I'm doing is I'm defining an area where I want Photoshop to heal and replace. So I'm painting around, I'm holding the mouse, and I'm not letting go. And once I have painted the entire area that I want to replace, when I let go of the mouse, Photoshop, just like with our panoramic, will then find nearby pixels and replace all of them inside of the area. And this tool is almost like magic. I use this all the time. Now, one of the things you can do is you can use the tool multiple times. So,
Chris, it looks like you dropped it.
Yeah. This has never happened before.
Yep, and it's back.
So one thing you could do is you can continue to use the tool. So I don't know if this is coming through on the Connect screen, but I can see a little bit of a artifacting here. So you can simply come in and just continue to paint areas. And you can use the tool multiple times to go in and make little touch-ups. So I'm going to hold the space bar and I'm going to pan over and we're going to find the guy who's wearing the really bright green. So I want to get rid of him, and here I want to show a brand new workflow in the 2019 version of Photoshop where we can get a preview of what some of the content-aware filling is going to do. So I'm going to come over here and use my selection tool, and I'm going to come down, go down to the lasso tool, And I'm going to come in here and just draw a pretty rough shape around this guy standing here. So once I have this selected, I'm going to come up to the Edit menu and come down and choose Content Aware Fill right down here. What this will do is this will bring up a preview panel that will show me a live result from this selection on how Photoshop is going to heal that area. So in my preview panel, I'm going to zoom up here so we can see the area. And this is what's going to happen in Photoshop if I click OK. I'm going to see this particular shape here. On the left-hand side, all of this green area, this is showing me all of the areas that Photoshop is going to be sampling from. So I don't want to have the hot spring area and the wall as pixels that can be replaced into here. I really only want to replace some of the rocks. So notice inside of my cursor there's a little minus symbol or a negative sign. So if I come in here and begin to paint, I'm painting away the green areas, and every time I let go, we'll see that preview will then be updated. So I'm changing where Photoshop is going to sample the artwork from. And now I'll see more of the rocks, and I won't see the wall showing up here. I might do the same thing for the sky as well. I want to get rid of everything except the more jagged rocks because the subject I'm removing is against the more jagged rocks. So now as I do all this, we can see I'm getting something much closer. Now it's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be pretty close. So I'm going to click OK, come back to Photoshop, hit Command-Control-D to get rid of my selection, and Photoshop, using that tool, placed the replaced pixels on its own layer so I can move that around. So now the second thing that I'll do really quick is go over to my Stamp tool, and with the Stamping tool selected, I'll hold the Option key, and I just want to replace some of these areas here real quick. So I'll hold the Option key and sample part of the wall down here. And if I move over, I can see a preview, and I'm just going to paint a little bit of the wall back in. So I'll just sample from one spot, move to the other. I'll add some rocks in over here, so I'll just sample some rocks from here and move these over. And then finally, I might select part of the railing here and replace the railing right over here just by clicking and dragging. And so now if I zoom out, again, he's really tiny, so some of those details may not have been quite necessary, but I like to get real picky and get right into the pixels. But this gives me such an incredible ability to go in and change all of my content. So these are the two techniques that we use to enhance some of the images. And then the last thing that I want to take a look at is something called the camera raw filter. So this is one of the other photos that was taken, and this will happen a lot, especially when you're out using things like cell phones. If you're moving the phone around quickly, they don't have time to measure the light and color balance and do the white balancing and so forth. So you'll end up with images that might be a little bit dark. The color might not be saturated enough. But in some cases, you'll have the picture that you really like. And so I just wanted to quickly show you some features that a lot of the professionals will use to make their images just really stand out. And these are things we can do really quick. So in the Layers panel, I just opened this JPEG file, so I have a background layer. So what I'm going to do first is simply right-click on the background layer and just convert this to a smart object. And so with this being a smart object, what that means in Photoshop is that I've basically sort of encapsulated this layer so that now I can apply different effects to it. And the effects are non-destructive, so I can go back and change my mind. It gives me the real freedom to sort of design and make adjustments. So with that, in a smart object, I'm going to come up to the Filter menu, and I'm going to come down and choose the Camera Raw filter. Now when you first launch this filter, it can be a little intimidating. On the right-hand side are tons and tons of settings. Anyone who does photography would feel right at home, but if you're not a photographer, these might look a little intimidating at first. There are a bunch of different settings across the center here, but all I'm going to do is just adjust a few things on the very first tab here. And if you don't know what these sliders do, you can just simply drag them around to see. So the first thing that I'll want to do is just adjust the exposure a little bit. And so again, if you're not really sure what exposure does, if I grab this and drag it down, the lower the exposure or the shorter amount of time the shutter was open, the darker the image will be. And if I drag it to the right, the lighter it'll be. So I like to come in here and just play with some of the settings, and I just make subtle adjustments. I don't do anything too strong. So I'll bring the exposure up just a little bit. Up here for temperature, I'm going to bring the temperature up a little bit. So that's going to warm this up, and we can see this is going toward the warm area. And I got here by going to the Camera Raw. I think I saw the whole thing pop up. So now I'm going to scroll down to the bottom, and I'm going to take a look at these items down here. So the saturation, I like to have my images much more saturated. And so this is just a personal preference, so I'm going to bring mine up to maybe somewhere around 20. And as I make these changes, you'll see some of the effects happening in the image. I'm also going to bring the vibrance up a little bit. I like to bring this up a little bit past my saturation, and that'll really bring in the blue skies. And then the dehaze and clarity, I'll just play with these a little bit as well. I can see some of the hairs on the horses here. And then the real magic is in the center here. So there's a shadows area and a blacks area. If we take the shadow area, if I drag this down, it will just take away some of the detail in the shadows. But if I drag this the other way, all of the data in the shadows will now come to light. And this is not a camera raw image. This is just a regular JPEG from a phone. So we can really punch up the way this image is going to look. And same thing with the blacks. I can just bump these up a little bit. And with the whites, I might pull these down. And again, you can just come in here and just play with these. So once I have something that I like, I can come in here and click OK. If I want to see a quick before and after, this is what we started with, and this is what we ended with. So it's just an incredible transformation that we get with Camera Raw. And then if I click away, I can see that I have this smart filter, which is on the smart object, and the Camera Raw filter showing here. So if I double click this, I can go back and continue to make changes. A lot of times I'll do all of my color correction at once, and then I'll go back and look at it the next day, because sometimes I might have gone overboard on one day, and then I just take a second look on a second day just to see. But this image just looks great, and we're ready to use this in our social media campaign. So these are some of the most amazing things you can do in Photoshop very quickly to create some outstanding images that we can start to use in our projects. So at this point, I have all of my assets. In my Photos folder, we have a couple of other images that have been prepared the same way. We have our waterfall. Here's our horses. Here's our panoramic. And so these are going to serve as the foundation for creating our social media content and promoting the new tours that we have available for our organization. So what we're going to do next is let's come in and let's go to the Spark website. So we're going to start by going to spark.adobe.com. And if you are logged in, then you can start working with the Spark platform just like any other services with Creative Cloud, or your Adobe ID rather. And so when we go into Spark, the first thing we're going to get, if we're logged in, is we're going to get a list of our projects. So if I scroll down here, here's a bunch of projects that I've been working on. We're going to be working on some of these Iceland photos here for our company. And what this allows me to do is to come in and start any new project and then be able to see all of the projects showing up down here. Another thing you'll notice is this is a Spark Post project showing up here. This is a Spark Video project. We're going to create posts and videos. We'll talk about pages, and I'll show you somebody else's Iceland page that they created in the Spark platform. But to get started, I really just want to start with something blank and just show you what it's like to work inside of the Spark environment. So at the very top, there's a plus sign. And one of the things that I've heard other people say is if you can click a plus sign, you can use Spark. Whenever you see the plus signs inside of Spark, this indicates to you that there are things that you can add and then begin to change. So when we click Add, there are 3 types of artwork that we can add to Spark. We can create graphics, we can create web pages, and we can create videos. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by creating a graphic. So I'm going to click on the graphic panel here, and Spark's going to walk us through this entire platform in this entire process for creating these different types of projects. So we can start with branding or we can start from scratch. And we're going to talk about branding in a moment. If you have just a basic version of Spark, you can come in here and start from scratch and start from templates that are already created for you. So I want to start from scratch because, again, I just want to start from a blank slate and I want to build up on all of the features and show you how these all begin to interrelate. So I'm going to click Start from Scratch. And then this is where Spark will, again, walk me through my project. So first I can choose what type of a project I'd like to create. I can go through a bunch of different presets here as well. We can create print graphics as well as social and screen graphics, profile, standard, and we can put custom. And we can even do things like if we go to a 16:9 widescreen, for example, we can even use this to create presentations for, let's say, Keynote or PowerPoint. And so again, we're not just limited to screen graphics. We can create documents for other platforms as well. So let's come down to popular, and let's come in here and let's choose landscape. I'm going to click next. The next thing Spark will prompt me to do is to either upload a photo or to choose a photo. There's a few services that are built into Spark, like Free Pixels and the Noun project, which are two different environments where you can use completely royalty-free imagery and artwork. But I'm going to come in here and choose to upload. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch back out to my computer, and let's come out and let's grab our Reykjavik panoramic. So we created this inside of Photoshop from two different photographs. Photoshop stitched them together. We have this showing up here. Let's hit next. So now that image is being uploaded into the Spark platform. So Spark's going to take that content, going to create a new project for me, and it's going to start me off with some text showing up here. Now at this point, it's deceptively simple. It looks like, the project looks really simple at first, but there's a lot of power happening on the right-hand side of the screen, and everything over here is very contextual. So I want to walk through some of these different pieces, because as we start to modify other people's templates or create branding elements, all of these pieces come into play, and they all interlock. So over here, if I come over here and click on my artwork, so here I click on the background. Over on the right-hand side, I can see all of the different filters for the object I have selected. And I can come in here and apply different effects. And everything here is happening inside of a browser. We also have mobile apps as well, and I'll be doing some of this on mobile too. So I don't want to use any filters, but I could use filters if I wanted to. I can flip and rotate and do different things to the background. I can even scale this background graphic, so I can click and drag and scale this up. Now in the center, I have my text block. So I'm going to start by selecting this text block. And on the right-hand side, all of my tools will then be changed. They'll be contextual to what I have selected. So down here, I can choose from different fonts. I'll come in here and pick a font. I like this one. I'll pick this one here. We can choose different behaviors for the type. So I can set different alignments. And a really great feature is this capitalize and fit feature. So if I select this item here, what this will do is allow me to resize my text, and Spark will pick individual words and will automatically size the other lines to match. And this takes a lot of work if you've ever done this in more traditional design tools. So to change the text, I'm going to simply double click, and that will bring me into text editing mode. I type tour the country of, I'm a terrible typist, and then I'll hit return, type in the word Iceland, and I'll click done. And so we can see what that capitalize and fit is going to do for me now. If I drag this around, you'll see Smart Guides showing up, so I can position this anywhere on the screen, but I'll get Smart Guides to sort of help me position and place this. And another feature that goes along with the type object is this shape area here. So if I come over here and select shape, while I have the type selected, I have a bunch of different options on how I can treat the typography. So I'm going to come up here and click backing shape of none. So now I just have a free-floating text block. Again, I can come in here and change this and move this around. I can come in and change and add backgrounds. And if you scroll through here, there are tons and tons of different features that you can add. I can add shapes. We can add a cutout where I can see my image through the type. Things, again, that would take a few extra steps in more traditional design tools. And I can just go through and quickly look at all of these different sort of shapes and designs. And if I scroll through, there are tons and tons of options down here. One of them that I really like, if I scroll up to the top, is this option here where what this will do is create a bar that goes the entire width for the artwork showing up here. So what this means is if I come in here and resize my type, it creates a bar that goes to full width. And this will work even if I rotate my shape around. So what's happening is the type here is being evaluated by Spark in addition to the canvas area. So this isn't just a rectangle that goes around the type, but it's a rectangle that also conforms to the edges of the canvas area. So everything in Spark is working together all the time, which is what makes everything inside of Spark work so fast and so quickly, especially when we're creating multiple versions of graphics. So I'm going to move this over here. I'm going to come up here and click on the type style. And what we're going to do after the style, let's go over to our color, and let's come in here and change a few colors. I can change the color of the background, and I can change the color of the type. and come in here and just begin to do different pieces here. The last thing we'll take a quick look at is the effects. So when I come into effects, when we were in the shape tool, the shape was applying basically effects to our type. But then if we want to add additional effects, we can come in here and combine effects that are defined in the effects panel with properties we defined in the shape, which are also taking their lead from what's in the type tools. So if I come in here, for example, I can turn off the cutout and just make the type show as a solid color. We can add shadows. And again, you can just explore this. Keep going through and just playing with it. It's too fun. So now the reason I went through and did this from scratch is because I wanted to take a minute to talk about all of these different tools and how they all sort of work together. And it's really important to understand that because what we're going to do next is, since there are so many things we can do, one of the most powerful aspects of Spark is the fact that we can work with templates. And templates are predefined layouts and structures that have all of these items combined together for us. And so what that does is it really reduces the amount of time it takes for us to get started on a project, and then gives us full control once we pick a template to customize it any way that we want for our particular project. And so at this point, I want to just recap just a little bit and talk about where we're going to go from here after we understand what the whole platform is like. So Spark is a system. So far we've looked at post, but there are actually a couple of different ways and types of content that we can create and work with inside of the Spark environment. And so we have post, page, and video. And so post, as we were just looking at, gives us a way that we can create graphics. We can even animate them on mobile, which we'll also take a look at in a few minutes. And it also gives us this remixing capability. And so I want to combine that with some of our templates. Page is a way that we can take content and create a beautiful, interactive, parallax scrolling, responsive website. I'm going to show you something that was built by Terry White in a few minutes as well, and you can get a sense of what that looks like. We're not going to build a page today, but the same workflow that we're going to look at in post and video works exactly the same way. And then finally, there's video. And without using like a nonlinear video editing tool, Spark's going to do all the heavy lifting for us. And we can basically work in what will look like slides, and Spark will create all of the animations and transitions for us automatically. So we're going to create some really compelling artwork very quickly. So inside of Post, one of the powerful features of this is not only can we choose from a whole range of templates and customize them and create our own, but as we go through in Spark and change the dimensions of the project, Spark will take all of its intelligence based on what it knows about design, what it sees trending, and what it sees in its templates, and what you do as the designer in here, how you arrange things, how you move things around, and how you crop. It's always learning from all of these inputs. And as you go through and make changes to sizes, Spark's going to be able to adjust your designs so close that it's only going to take you a couple of seconds to go through and sort of art direct and make some of those individual changes. So let's take a look at that in conjunction with the feature of creating what's called a brand inside of Spark. So I talked a little bit about templates, and we're going to look at those. But the other thing we can do inside of Spark, if you have the premium edition of Spark, which you'll get with Creative Cloud and with your photography plan and a couple of other options that some of the folks on the Adobe call today can elaborate on. But the premium edition allows us to create a brand. And this is where templates and the branding becomes so incredibly powerful. So these are going to be the elements for the brand that we're going to add our photography to that we made with Photoshop to create all of our content. And so what a brand consists of is a logo, our color scheme, and our fonts. And in this case, I'm actually going to use fonts that I'm going to upload from my computer. So I can upload them OpenType or TrueType from my computer into the Spark brand, and I can use my own fonts. So when we go in to create a brand, this can take a couple of minutes. I'll just show you some slides real quick. But we'll be asked to first upload a logo, second to pick a primary color, and third, pick a font that's either on the system already or upload fonts that you have the license for. And then what Spark will do is combine all three of these elements together, and then it will take all of the templates, whether they're feature templates being added new, templates already in the system, or templates that you've created, and it will automatically apply your branding and style to all of those individual templates. And this gives you an incredible leg up for creating all of your content. It just gives you that starting point that you don't have to go into a design tool and start with a new blank document. It's just starting everything for you right away. So once you've created your brand, then jump over into Post. I will have a managed brand up here. If you haven't created a brand, this will prompt you to create a brand. So if I come over here and click on Manage Brand, this is what happens after we have created a brand for our project. As I scroll through here, we can see in the first section are all the templates. These are all of the things that you would use with Spark Post. There are tons and tons of templates. You can come in here and click See All. And again, the next thing is we can start with any of these and then continue to customize them. As I scroll down, we also have themes that have been created. And this idea of themes is really powerful because with tools like Page and Video, these are areas where you create multiple pages and interactive experiences. And that means we need to have our content sort of be consumed either along a timeline or along a scrolling page. So this idea of a theme informs Spark on how we can go through and apply that to large amounts of content and just keeps everything consistent. It's almost like a global design style sheet for your content. And we'll see this taking effect when we get into the video piece. And if I hover over these, any of these is fully editable as well. And then we can come down here and customize some of the additional pieces as well. Stamps, for example, will automatically show up over top of videos. We can do all these different pieces. As you start getting more comfortable with the platform, you'll start to see how we can basically use these little pieces to add into our themes and templates as well. So with all of these in place, let's go back to our projects. And I'm going to come in here and let's start a new project. I'm going to choose a graphic again. And here, notice on this first screen, I have Tour & Co. because I've already created my brand. And these are all of the templates that have been customized with our brand. Our light blue for the new tour we want to promote. You'll see our logo showing up in here. You'll see that this is in Franklin Gothic, which is our corporate font. Everything has been sort of pre-designed for us already. If I go to the Featured tab, these are templates that have been added since I've created my brand. The Spark team is adding templates weekly and sometimes daily. And if I ever find a particular design that I like, let's say I like this one, I can select that, and then I can use a feature called Brandify to add my brand to this project. So if I click into so I'm in here, for example, and so inside of this, I've started a new project from this particular template. So I can go into my layout, or into my design, and when I click on design, you'll see that I have this Brandify button showing up here. I simply click this one time, and my brand will now be applied to this particular object. So I'm going to come back out, and I'm going to start over one more time. I'm going to start with my branding. I'm going to create, let's say, a Facebook post. So instead of starting from something there, I'm going to start from templates that have already been defined for me. I'm going to choose Upload Graphic. I'm going to follow that same exact workflow. But in this case, I'm going to choose the Gulf Coast Waterfall. So I'll come in here and click on that, and then click Next. Once this uploads, I will get my document here. Notice this is now in my company font, and I also have a logo showing up down here. So now with this graphic started, if I have nothing selected, I have this sort of global settings for my particular project. And so notice I have this variations listing here. So what this does is this allows me to go through and look at a bunch of different layout possibilities for the graphic I've already started. So if I click on the flag here, for example, or this particular layout, all of my art is being applied to this. But you know, the graphic I already have defined is being applied. My text is already showing up here, but all of the layout components will be modified and changed. So I'm going to come in here and let's type in a headline. So I'll type Tour the Country of Iceland again. I'm going to go to my type. I'm going to choose Capitalize and Fit. As you can start to see, once you get the hang of the system, it becomes really fast to come in here and start changing your content. I might just increase my size a little bit and decrease the letter spacing, all of the design tools you would expect. And at the top, I'm going to come in here and we're going to brandify this so all of my colors are being used. And now as I come in here and change my content, you'll notice that my colors are being used throughout the piece. So my photo is saved, my type is being saved, my logo is showing up in here, but I can come in here and just make all of these different changes. So that's under variations. If I come over here to layout, layout gives me a whole bunch of predefined structures that I can simply select and then begin to change to add my content as well. So I'm going to come down here and select this item here. I've got that large panoramic that we created earlier. So I simply select this layout, and now I have areas for additional photographs showing up in here as well. Now to take this photograph and move it to the top left, I'm going to just simply click and drag and just drop this over here. So I come down here and select the section. You can move all of your items around. As soon as I start making changes, I'm starting to make this template my own. So I'm going to select this area down here, and then I'm going to come over here and click on this option here to replace the background graphic. Once I select this, I can choose to upload a photo. I'm going to come over here and let's choose our Reykjavik panoramic. I'll choose OK, and then that will show up down here at the bottom. And again, I have the ability to scale and move this and just make use of that large photograph that we made earlier inside of Photoshop. I'm going to select the Iceland option here. Let's go to Shape. I'm going to scroll up, and I'm going to pick the full width shape. I can click and move this around. I'm going to bring this down here to the bottom. With this selected, I'll go back to the Type tool, make the size a little bit bigger. I can also grab the corners, and I can change some of the padding in here as well. Next, I'll go to Color. I'm going to click on Change the Colors. We can change the different colors of the different pieces down here as well. So make the background black, make the type white. We will make the background black. And then finally, let's go to our opacity, and we'll just bring the opacity of the background graphic down just a little bit. Now I can change the center points here. I can just delete some of these items, and we can add a second photo. So here I might bring in the horses. So at this point, once I have something pretty close, I want to switch over and show you what some of this looks like on the mobile platform as well. And so once I have all these pieces in place, I can begin to move these around. So now again, as mentioned before, where this gets incredibly powerful is once I have a design that I like, come in here and start to move things around. And notice I move one shape and everything on the canvas moves. Everything about Spark is just built to make my life faster and easier. So once I have sort of a design that I like, I can come over here to the Resize option. And so what Resize will do is, as I mentioned before, Spark is learning the whole time we're working with our project. It's learning how we want our images scaled and cropped, and it's paying attention to these different pieces. So as I come over to Resize, and maybe I want to resize this to Twitter, which wouldn't be, it's still rectangular, but the dimensions are different, so things will begin to move around. But I can then go into Pinterest, for example, and notice that the proportion of the shapes is being maintained. We come down and choose Resize to something different, maybe a Snapchat story. As I select each one of these items, Spark will then come in here and start making some additional changes. Now, while some of the adjustments that it's making might not be what you would have done by default or based on your personal taste, it only takes a few seconds to come in here and make a change. So if I want to see more of the horses, I can just come in here and simply click Scale or move these around, and I just make my changes really quick. So again, it just sort of acts like that production artist for you that will do most of the work for you, and then you can come in here and just make some subtle adjustments to your art to make those individual changes. When I'm done making my changes, I'm going to come back here and just click on my projects. And so at this point, I want to take a look at what some of this content looks like when we do this on a mobile platform as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide the browser. I want to have my screen nice and clean here so you can see some of the things that I would do on a mobile device. So I'll bring up my phone here, and I also want to bring up a video camera showing you what I'm doing on my phone as well. Because one of the most powerful things about Spark is I can work on this anywhere. I don't have to be working on my desktop. I can be working on a mobile device as well. And you don't have to be very perfect. The Spark team has done a really great job of setting this up so that I can actually do really minute changes in design design processes with my fingers. So I'm going to start by coming over here and I'm going to click on Spark Post. And you'll see we have Spark Post, Page, and Video showing up here. So when I tap on Spark Post, that's going to bring me into the Post platform. And notice that this looks exactly like what we saw on the desktop. I can see all of my templates. I can see all of the colors that are being applied here. So in the lower right, I'm going to come down and click on My Post. And you'll see everything that I'm working on, even the design that we were just working on our computer. So I'm going to tap on this. So inside of here, I have the option to come in here. I can delete it. I can edit, duplicate, or do even more. I can do some sharing. So I'm going to start by choosing Edit. So when I go into the Edit mode, you'll notice that these icons over here to the right look very much like what we saw in the web. And the reason that I spent all that time in the beginning talking about all these different sections is because on the mobile platform, we have all of the same capabilities that we have on the phone. They're just divided up a little bit because we have a smaller screen. But for example, if I come into the design category, here's my Brandify button, just like we had on the computer. And if I scroll through here, I can see all of these different designs that I can immediately apply to my project. So I can just tap on all of these, and all of the content will move around and change. Anything that hasn't been defined in my brand will pick up from the template, so the colors are picking up here. And I can just go through and find a design that I like, and then I can come in and continue to modify it. I'm going to come in here. So let's say I'll pick this one just for demonstration purposes. So now when I like the design, I can come down here and tap Done in the lower right corner. And then we have a couple of other options. So for palettes, we can come in here and change the whole brand palettes. I'm going to come in here and just simply tap on the type, for example. So with the type selected, notice down here we have all of the same sort of tools we had, again, on the desktop version. So here's our shape, for example, so I can set the shape to be that full width or pick any additional shapes. We can come down and change the color. You can change the color of the type. You can change the font, and notice on the left-hand side, I can choose my Franklin Gothic font. So this is the font that I uploaded. And on my computer, I'll show you real quick. Inside of my branding assets, inside of my folder, here's my Franklin Gothic files that I just upload these directly into the Spark platform. So we just were able to just take those and just push those right up. Our effects, our size. So again, the reason I'm going through these is because these are all separated now on the phone because we have a much smaller screen size to work with. But everything is adjustable here. So the other thing that I can do is, as I mentioned, I don't have to be exact when I start to work on the screen. So if I want to center the type, I can choose centering. But if I want to resize this, if I come in here and just sort of tap, I don't have to get exactly on that dot. If I get anywhere near the corner, Spark knows what I'm trying to do. So it'll automatically highlight specific areas. If I grab the rotation and move this around, you won't be able to sort of feel this, but my phone will actually vibrate a little bit as we get to different points of the smart guides. So as I rotate this around, it will sort of be a little bit sticky. And so this is great. So if I just wanted to rotate this 45, I just have to get somewhat close, and Spark will take care of that for me. So I don't, again, have to really get in there and worry about being exactly precise. Spark's going to take care of that for me. Over the spacing, I might increase the lines, might increase the letters a little bit. And again, all the things that we did before. So there's the feature that I like a lot. If I want to change the pictures, I can tap on one and move them around, just like I would do on the desktop, and tap on my logo and move this around and just be able to change this as well. So just an incredible number of options. And then I'll just come in here and click Done, and then I can come up here and click My Post and go back to my main screen. Now this new updated graphic is going to be available anywhere. So one thing I want to talk about, or the last thing on Post before we jump in to take a look at some of the features inside the video option, is the ability to take a graphic and be able to share it so that other people can make variations for that particular project. So what we want to do here is we want to start a contest. So let's say we have a graphic, and so we're a touring company, and we want to have a contest for people to say what their favorite tour was. So maybe people didn't like Iceland, or maybe people didn't do that Iceland trip. So we might want to put together a graphic where people can put in their own favorite excursion. And so basically we're starting a graphic that other people can then complete. So we can come in and make all of our different changes, and then I can choose share once it's ready, and then I can choose this top option here called create a mixable copy. And so what that's going to look like, it's not going to look like anything for us except we're going to get a link that we can share. But what that's going to do for the end user is that's going to create a link that I can then share with anybody or put on a website. And when they click the link, they're going to get a screen that looks like this. It's going to bring them into Spark. It's going to say who it was created by, and they're going to get this option here that says remix this design. And then once they click on that, they're going to be brought into the Spark platform with all of our content in place so that they can come in here and modify this graphic. So they can come in here and change this to just make something different, share it out, and then if we see that, we can decide who we thought was sort of the best remixer of our content. And so they might do something like this. I'm going to come in here inside of my post, going to select the graphic here, and we're just going to come in here and change the image. So in the top, I'm going to click on New Image, and I'm going to pick an image from my Creative Cloud. Let's say I really liked Paris much more than that piece. I can double tap on the text. I can come in here and make my changes. This is where I can't talk and type or spell. So I can put in what I like, tower. Just pretend I spelled it right. Click Done. And of course, I can make additional changes if I would like. I can move things around. And then I can share this out. So really quickly, I'm basically not only sharing just a graphic, but I'm sharing an entire system, a template, a structure, and everything with different people so they can go in and start to customize the graphics. And then one of the really cool things that we have on the mobile platform under our effects is the ability to start adding some animation to our projects. And this will be how we segue into video. So if I come in here and tap on some of these items, we can animate our content in here. So the first item here is actually animating our text as I select this. And you can see this on the larger version of my broadcast screen as well. So Eiffel Tower would swipe in. We can do a zoom, which will zoom the background graphic, zoom this out. Again, just such an incredible number of options for creating content for our post. And so let's switch back over to our desktop version, and I want to talk about creating videos inside of Spark Post and show you what that workflow looks like as well. And everything that we've done so far with the plus sign, bringing this content in, are things that we can do when we create a video as well. So I'm going to first show you the final result video. If I open up the video here, this is the MPEG-4 that was exported directly from the website and then downloaded to my computer, or we can export it to our phone. And so this play this up a little bit. I don't know if you can hear the music across, but there's music built in. But all of these beautiful transitions, all of the content is all being done inside of Spark. And it's all the heavy lifting, again, is being done for us. We can bring in all of these different photographs, set all of our type, all the branding is intact. And here we actually have a video from Adobe Stock that we loaded up into here and set the video to play across multiple sort of slides. So we can basically have text that will change as the background video stays in place. Things that would take a little bit of time inside of a nonlinear editing tool in order to create that content. Let's take a look at what the video experience looks like inside of Spark. So I'm going to start with the video that's sort of partly done. So this would be created by hitting the plus sign and choosing video. I'm going to close out of here. You can watch a tutorial right there inside of Spark. And so when we create a video, the interface is going to look a little bit different. Over on the right-hand side, we have all of our layouts, just like we had with Post. So we have a couple of options here where we can have captions, titles, split screen, or full. If I go to themes, notice these are the exact themes we set up in the brand. We have a resize option, which we'll take a look at in a minute. This is completely amazing. And we also have the ability to add music, and there's a bunch of different music that you can choose from, or of course you can add your own. You can upload a WAV or an MPEG-3 and have that added. And you can also come down here to the microphone. You can click and hold on the microphone, and you can speak into your computer's microphone, and you can add your own narration to video as well. So down here at the bottom, this is basically how Spark Video works. We have a plus sign showing up here. And so it sort of feels like using presentation software. So if I come in here and click the plus sign, I can add a new slide. And then once we add a slide, we can add different types of content. I can choose icons. We can add text. And type something in here. It'll show up in my corporate font. If I want to get rid of something, I can come over here to the ellipsis, and I'll come in here and I'll just delete this. So what I did is I sort of roughed out this idea. I want to sort of start with the waterfall. It's this nice open area photograph here. And I want to highlight a couple of the different things that you can do on the tour. You can see wildlife, there's culture. We want to bring in another photo. We have our video, because we have excursions where you can go see some of these beautiful waterfalls. And then we have a sort of surprising picture at the end, sort of sunset. You don't really think of sunsets in Iceland, but they have beautiful ones. So we sort of have the ending part of our story, and then prompt people to download a catalog. So we're going to create this animated video that we're going to play on social, and to sort of pay off to that to get a catalog in people's hands so they can go in and start to play with this. So one of the things I'm going to do is come over here to the photograph here, and I'm going to come over here and click on the photo, and I'm going to duplicate this slide. Now automatically, if you just place a photo in a slide, if I come in here and click play to preview this, you'll see that it starts to animate. It's already creating this sort of panning effect where we're zooming into the photo. And that's all being built in for us automatically. So by duplicating the photo, I have the same photo in the second screen, but I'm going to come in here and let's come in here and add some type. So I'm going to type new tours in. We want to sort of create a build up here. And down here, this is going to show for 2 seconds. I'm going to tap on this, and we're going to show this for maybe about 4 seconds. Bring this in here, give this a little bit of time to load. Then I'll come in here and duplicate this again. And on the duplicate, let's come in here and type in our text. Let's increase this, make this much larger. And notice it sort of snapped into the center. So again, Spark is going to just sort of help me line everything up. And so since I have the same image in the background, but I've changed the type a few times, change the duration, if I come back here to the first slide and choose play from here, then the animation is going to have that background graphic panning the entire time as we go through each of the individual slides. And all of the transitions are being taken care of for us. Now, one other really beautiful feature is if I come over here to the area where we have a video in the background, so I'm going to select this slide. I selected the background, and you can just choose Upload Video and pull the video right from your computer. I'm going to come over here to the little Edit menu, and I'm going to come down and choose the option here, which is the Continue Clip. So what this is going to do is it's going to create another slide where the video will continue from where it stopped on the first slide, but I can then add more content over top of the video, sort of like we did with the panning, but this is now working with the video. So this one says, and more. So then we're going to continue that thought with the word excursions. So with more excursions, let's go back to this slide here, and let's do a play. And so now as we watch this preview, the video will play, and more will fade away and bring in excursions, but the video in the background played the whole time. And if I want to make that longer, I can just come in here and just set the duration and set that to be a little bit longer. And then finally, the last thing I want to do down at the end, we have an automatic credits and an automatic title slide at the end. However, I don't want to use those. I'm going to come in here and just hide those. And what I want to use instead is I want to make use of some content we have from some of our other branding content. So inside of PowerPoint, I have this ending slide. This is something that we use when we go out and present our company to shareholders and so forth. And so this is the catalog, and this is our logo. So what we did in PowerPoint is exported a JPEG file. And so what I want to do is use that JPEG file in my presentation. So I'm going to come in here, back in Spark Video. I'm going to click on Photo. I'm going to go back to my OS. Let's grab the catalog slide. And then once that's in place, I'll grab my text. And now I'm just going to move this to the lower right-hand corner, Spark will automatically justify that to the right. And now I have a final slide that I can show for this project. We'll hit play from this point. And then again, all the transitions will be taken care of for me automatically. Type is aligned, and now we've made use of that other branding content as well. And before I end, at this point, I do want to show the Spark page feature that I talked about. So this is a Spark page that was created by Terry White. And this just shows you the sort of third type of content you can create with Spark. So this is an Iceland page that Terry created. And basically, this is a fully responsive, interactive, parallax scrolling website. So it's a lot of fancy words in there. But basically, what this means is I can come in here and start to scroll through the page, and using the same tools that we saw with video and post, as I scroll through here, we can see how all of the story and content will move. How as I scroll through, you can see that things will sort of fade and animate in. Different items will scroll at different paces. It just creates this really nice and engaging experience for this particular process. So notice here as I scroll down, we can see the photo will zoom in and out, and just really ties together all of the amazing layout features that we have with post and video inside of Page as well. And so I went over. I apologize for going over, but I just had so much cool stuff to show you guys. And so with that, I guess I'll hand it over to Q&A, and I just encourage you guys to just jump into Spark and just start playing with all of these amazing design features and see how much time it can save you by learning from you as you design in it.
All right, thank you, Chris. And ladies and gentlemen, if you do have any questions for Chris, we do realize we're a little over time here, but please feel free to submit those in the Q&A pod on the left-hand side. Are there any questions, Chris, that you may be seeing or that any of the team has been seeing that you may want to call out here just to sort of highlight for the audience?
Let me look. I got popped out of the room again, but thank goodness it happened after I was done.
Oh, okay. Looks like all the questions actually have been answered by the team. So I can bring you back into the room, and I'll do that real quickly here. But before we log off today, we do want to get a little bit of feedback from you as to how you felt about this presentation, and if you would like to go ahead and provide that feedback here, that would be great. Again, it's just a few short questions and then some typed in answers. And with that, I'll hand the floor back over to Chris for any closing statements that you may have.
No, like I said before, I would just encourage people to go and try Spark. I think this is me sort of speaking off the cuff. I think one of the things I didn't realize when I was using Spark was how it was trying to learn from me and how it was trying to just extend my workflow. At first, I sort of thought it was either trying to design for me, or I really wasn't taking advantage of the fact that if I did something on 2 or 3 different graphics, it was learning from that. And then as I would increase the number of graphics I was creating, it was making more and more intelligent guesses as to what I wanted. And what it really did is it just really took the tedious aspect out of my workflow. It just made it so that I could go in and tweak the things that were important to me, the little design nuances that I really just want to make sure are captured, but I didn't have to create the structure, create the content, resize the canvas, move all of my frames around. And so for me, that was the sort of aha moment, was when I let it do its thing, and then I went back later and did all the details. And that's kind of like what art directors do. So it's almost like Spark is like my production artist. I saw somebody asked about animated GIFs. I don't know what the answer was there, but you can Spark Video and Spark Post, both of the animation types it can create will result in an MPEG-4. And then you can then take the MPEG-4s and bring those into Adobe Media Encoder to encode them into an animated GIF, or you can bring those into Photoshop, and you can actually export from Photoshop with a video to animated GIF as well. So those are two possible workflows to get animated GIFs from the content you're creating in Spark. And I can see why people would want to do that, because those transitions in video are just, they're made so fast and they're beautiful, and it just takes you no time to put that stuff together. So with a couple thoughtful slides to tell your story, that just gives you a lot of power for what you can create.
All right. Well, fantastic. Well, ladies and gentlemen, with that, we will leave this session open so you can submit any last questions or some feedback here on our polls. But we thank you very much for your time today, and especially thanks to Chris Converse for your presentation and information. And with that, we will close out today's session, and you may disconnect and have a great day.